How much does it cost to buy the Pope? That's not a joke. That's a real question with a real answer. And in 1519, a German banker named Jakob Fugger found out exactly what the price was. It wasn't metaphorical. It wasn't symbolic. Fugger literally paid cash to put a specific man on the throne of St. Peter. He financed the Pope's election the same way you'd finance a car. And when the Pope tried to refuse payment, Fugger sent him a letter that's so arrogant, so brutal, it's still studied in business schools 500 years later. Here's what it said. Your Holiness owes me money, and everyone knows you wouldn't be Pope without my gold. Pay me back or I'll make sure everyone knows how you got that crown. The Pope paid. Immediately. This is the story of Jakob Fugger, the richest human being who ever lived, adjusted for inflation. Richer than Musk, richer than Bezos, richer than Rockefeller. And the most disturbing part, he didn't just buy one Pope, he bought 5 of them. Kings begged him for loans, emperors kissed his ring, and when the Catholic Church tried to ban charging interest on loans, literally tried to make his business model a sin, Fugger bought the Pope who would change the rules. They called him Jakob the Rich. But that's not what he was. He was Jakob the Untouchable. Before we go deeper into how one man became more powerful than the church itself, do 2 things right now. First, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I want to see where our community is around the world. Second, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this channel exists to reveal the brutal truth about how power and money actually work, not the sanitized version they teach in schools. What you're about to hear will change how you see wealth forever. Now you need to understand something about the world Jakob Fugger was born into. This was 1459. Europe was a chessboard, and every king, every prince, every pope was a piece being moved by forces they barely controlled. The Renaissance was exploding across Italy. Constantinople had just fallen to the Ottomans, and the Catholic Church wasn't just a religious institution, it was the most powerful political entity on earth. But here's what they don't tell you in history class. None of these power players had any actual money. They had land, they had titles, they had armies. But cash, hard currency, that was rare. And if you wanted to wage war, buy loyalty, or secure a crown, you needed gold. Lots of it right now. Enter the Fugger family of Augsburg, Germany. They started as weavers, cloth merchants, nothing special. Jakob's grandfather had built a modest textile business, and by the time Jakob was born, the family was comfortable, but not remarkable. Just another merchant family in a city full of them. But Jakob Fugger wasn't interested in comfort. He was the youngest of 7 sons, which meant he'd inherit nothing. The family business would go to his older brothers. So at age 14, he did what younger sons did back then. He joined the church. He was sent to Italy to train as a clerk, to learn Latin and accounting, and maybe, if he was lucky, become some bishop's secretary. That's where everything changed. Italy wasn't just the heart of the Renaissance. It was the birthplace of modern banking. The Medici family in Florence had figured out something revolutionary. You could make more money lending gold than selling goods. You could turn money itself into a product. And Jakob Fugger, this teenage German clerk, watched and learned. When he returned to Augsburg, his older brothers were still weaving cloth. Jakob told them they were thinking too small. He convinced them to pivot, stop just selling textiles, start financing the people who buy them, offer credit, charge interest, use the cash flow from the weaving business to make loans. His brothers thought he was insane. The church literally called lending money at interest a mortal sin. You could go to hell for it. Jakob didn't care. He'd seen the future in Italy, and the future was banking. Here's where it gets interesting. Jakob didn't start by lending to merchants or local nobles. That's what everyone else did. He went straight to the top. He started lending to royalty, to kings, to emperors. And here's the genius of it. When you lend money to a merchant and he can't pay, you've got a problem. But when you lend money to a king and he can't pay, he's got a problem. Because kings can't just declare bankruptcy. Kings need to stay kings, and that means they need you. In 1487, the Archduke of Austria, who would later become Emperor Maximilian I, needed money to fight a war. Every banker in Europe turned him down. Too risky, too unstable. But Jakob Fugger said yes. He lent Maximilian a fortune. And Maximilian lost the war. Couldn't pay him back. Any normal banker would have been ruined. Jakob Fugger asked for something better than money. He asked for access to the silver mines in Tyrol. Maximilian gave it to him. Had no choice. And suddenly, Jakob Fugger wasn't just a banker. He controlled the source of the money itself. He owned the mines that produced the silver that became the currency of Europe. This is lesson number 1. Debt is control. When someone owes you money, you don't just own their assets, you own their decisions. Maximilian couldn't make a move without checking with Fugger first. Couldn't start a war, couldn't sign a treaty, couldn't even choose his own advisors without Fugger's approval. And the more Maximilian borrowed, the tighter Fugger's grip became. By 1508, Fugger had expanded into copper mines, gold mines, and mercury mines. He had a monopoly on the metals that powered Europe's economy, and he'd started doing something even more audacious. He was lending to multiple kings at the same time, kings who were at war with each other. He financed both sides. If Austria fought France, Fugger funded both armies. He always won. Didn't matter who lost the war, they both owed him. Think about that for a second. Imagine if one person financed both candidates in a presidential election, both parties, both campaigns. No matter who wins, they owe you. That's not influence, that's ownership. By 1514, Jakob Fugger was the indispensable man of Europe. Maximilian was now Holy Roman Emperor, and he was essentially Fugger's puppet. The emperor once wrote to Fugger, begging for another loan. And Fugger wrote back with a line so cold it still echoes through history. "It is well known that your imperial majesty could not have acquired the Roman crown without my help." Translation: "You're only emperor because I paid for it. Don't forget who made you." But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Because controlling emperors wasn't enough for Jakob Fugger. He wanted something nobody had ever tried to buy before. He wanted to control God's representative on earth. In 1513, Pope Julius II died. The College of Cardinals gathered in Rome to elect his successor. Now, you have to understand what a papal election meant in the 16th century. This wasn't a spiritual decision. The Pope commanded armies. The Pope controlled laws. The Pope could legitimize or destroy any king in Europe with a single decree. Whoever became Pope held veto power over every throne on the continent. The cardinals elected Giovanni de' Medici. He became Pope Leo X. And here's what most people don't know. Jakob Fugger financed his campaign. Fugger had agents in Rome who bribed cardinals, secured votes, and delivered the crown of St. Peter to Leo. It wasn't cheap, but it was an investment. Because now Jakob Fugger had leverage over the Pope himself, and he used it immediately. Remember, the Catholic Church had spent centuries declaring that charging interest on loans was a sin. Usury, they called it, mortal sin, the kind that sends you to hell. But Jakob Fugger's entire empire was built on interest. Every loan, every mine, every fortune he made came from charging interest. So he went to Pope Leo and made him an offer. Fugger would finance the church's projects, cathedrals, armies, bribes, whatever Leo needed. And in exchange, Leo would issue a papal decree clarifying that certain kinds of interest weren't actually usury, that there were exceptions, loopholes. Leo agreed. In 1515, the Pope released a statement that essentially legalized Jakob Fugger's business model. The thing the church had called a sin for 1,000 years was suddenly acceptable. Why? Because the man who paid for the Pope's crown told him to change the rules. Let that sink in. Fugger didn't break the law. He bought the person who wrote the laws and had them rewritten. That's not power, that's omnipotence. But we're not done. Because in 1519, something happened that would test just how far Fugger's control really went. Emperor Maximilian died, and the throne of the Holy Roman Empire was up for grabs. This was the biggest prize in Europe. The Holy Roman Emperor wasn't just a king. He was the protector of Christendom, the secular arm of the Catholic Church, the most powerful political position on earth. There were two main candidates, King Francis I of France and Charles I of Spain, who was Maximilian's grandson. Both of them wanted it desperately, and both of them needed the same thing: money to bribe the 7 electors who would choose the next emperor. Francis went to every banker in Europe. They all turned him down, too expensive, too risky. So he went to Jakob Fugger, and Fugger said no, not because he couldn't afford it, because he'd already chosen the other side. He was financing Charles. Fugger lent Charles an obscene amount of money, 850,000 florins. In today's terms, that's roughly $100 million, just for bribes. Charles took that money, bought off the electors, and became Emperor Charles V. The most powerful man in Europe owed his throne entirely to Jakob Fugger. But here's the twist. At the exact same time, Pope Leo X died. The cardinals had to elect a new pope. And guess who financed that election too? Jakob Fugger. He backed Cardinal Giulio de' Medici, who became Pope Clement VII. So now, in 1519, Jakob Fugger had installed both the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope, the two most powerful positions in the Western world. Both of them owed him money. Both of them knew they wouldn't have their crowns without his gold. That's lesson number 2, finance both sides, and you own the outcome. Fugger didn't care about politics. He didn't care about religion. He cared about leverage. And leverage means control. Now you'd think the Pope would be grateful. But Clement VII tried to play games. He started delaying payments, making excuses. After all, he was the Pope. Who could pressure him? The answer was Jakob Fugger. Fugger sent him that letter, the one we talked about at the start. Your Holiness owes me money, and everyone knows you wouldn't be Pope without my gold. Pay me back, or I'll make sure everyone knows how you got that crown. The Pope paid, immediately, because Fugger wasn't bluffing. He had the receipts. He had the paper trail. He could destroy Clement's legitimacy with a single public statement, and Clement knew it. This is lesson number 3. Rules don't apply when you're financing the people who make the rules. Fugger operated in a space beyond law, beyond morality, beyond consequences. He wasn't subject to the system. He was the system. But here's where the story gets even more disturbing. Because Fugger didn't just want to control the Pope. He wanted to profit from the Church's core business. And in the early 16th century, the Church's most profitable product was salvation. Specifically, indulgences. You could pay the Church to forgive your sins. Pay enough and you'd skip purgatory entirely. It was a spiritual subscription service, and it made the Church an unbelievable amount of money. Jakob Fugger wanted in, so he cut a deal with Pope Leo. Fugger would finance the sale of indulgences across Germany. He'd set up the distribution network, handle the cash flow, and take a percentage of every sale. The Pope would get his cut, Fugger would get his cut, and they'd split the profits from people's fear of hell. Let me be clear about what this means. Jakob Fugger was literally selling tickets to heaven, and he was using the Pope as his sales agent. The Church, the institution that claimed to represent God's will on earth, had become a front for Fugger's financial empire. This is where history gets uncomfortable, because in 1517 a German monk named Martin Luther saw what was happening. He saw indulgence salesmen working for Fugger, taking money from terrified peasants, promising them salvation that only God could grant. And Luther snapped. He wrote his 95 Theses and nailed them to a church door in Wittenberg. He didn't mean to start a revolution. He just wanted to call out the corruption. But the corruption he was calling out, that was Jakob Fugger's business model. The indulgences that sparked the Protestant Reformation, that split Christianity in half, that led to wars that killed millions, those were financed by Jakob Fugger. He didn't cause the Reformation, but his greed was the gasoline. Luther lit the match. And here's the thing that makes this entire story so chilling. Fugger didn't care. The Reformation didn't hurt him. Catholics and Protestants both needed loans, both needed weapons, both needed money to fight each other. And Jakob Fugger financed both sides. The religious wars that tore Europe apart for a century? Fugger's family bank funded all of it. That's lesson number 4. Wealth isn't about consumption, it's about leverage over others. Fugger didn't live like a king. He lived modestly. He didn't build palaces. He built power. And power means making yourself indispensable to people who think they're in charge. By 1525, when Jakob Fugger died, he was worth an estimated $400 to $500 billion in today's money. Richer than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos combined. Richer than any individual human being before or since. He controlled emperors, popes, kings, and banks across Europe. He'd rewritten church doctrine to suit his business model. He'd financed both sides of every major conflict of his era. And he'd done it all without holding a single political office. But here's the irony. Everything he built collapsed within 2 generations. His nephews couldn't hold it together. They made bad loans to kings who actually did default. They trusted the wrong people. By 1600, the Fugger Bank was a shadow of what it had been. The family was still wealthy, but the empire was gone. Why? Because Jakob Fugger's power wasn't based on systems. It was based on him, his intelligence, his ruthlessness, his willingness to do what nobody else would do. And when he died, that died with him. But his methods didn't die. They evolved. Today, we don't call them bankers who buy popes. We call them central banks that influence governments. We call them political donors who fund both parties. We call them corporations that write the regulations that govern their own industries. The mechanics are the same. Finance the decision makers and you control the decisions. Fugger just did it more honestly. He didn't pretend to be a philanthropist. He didn't claim to be saving the world. He was a banker. He lent money. He charged interest. He collected debts. And if you didn't pay, he destroyed you. Pope, emperor, king, it didn't matter. The debt was the debt. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. If you had Jakob Fugger's wealth and 0 consequences, would you do what he did? Would you buy a pope? Would you finance both sides of a war? Would you rewrite the laws of God to protect your business? Most people say no. They say they'd be different, they'd be ethical. But Jakob Fugger probably told himself the same thing. He probably believed he was just doing business. Just being smart, just playing the game better than everyone else. And maybe that's the most terrifying part of this story. Fugger didn't think he was evil. He thought he was inevitable. The difference between Jakob Fugger and today's billionaires isn't the methods. It's that Fugger was honest about what he was doing. He didn't hide behind charitable foundations or public relations campaigns. He said it plainly. I own you because you owe me. Pay up or suffer. And everyone paid. If this story changed how you see wealth and power, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Because next time, we're diving into another figure who operated beyond the rules. Someone who made Fugger look merciful. You won't want to miss it.